Welcome to Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman. Sean couldn't make it today. He's stuck at work. Today I'm going to be replacing my radiator, my thermostat, and I'm going to be installing an aftermarket transmission cooler because on a recent trip up to the mountains, pulling a motorcycle trailer, carrying a bunch of gear in the back, I saw my transmission temperature get up to 230 degrees up a steep climb, a slow mountain road. And I was able to monitor the temperature gauge by using a Bluetooth sensor that goes into your OBD2 connection where you can check engine codes. And then I had it running to my phone, my Android phone, with the Torque Pro app, and you can monitor all kinds of things with this application. It's a really cool application for $5, and I spent $22 on that Bluetooth sensor that sends all the information from the car's computer to my phone. The reason why I'm doing this job is, one, my truck is 16 years old. It's got 140,000 miles on it. There is one situation that could occur on basically any car with a transmission cooler inside the radiator, and what happens is that the internal cooler for the transmission line fails. You get a mixing of the coolant with the transmission fluid. That contaminated fluid makes its way back to the transmission and then ruins your automatic transmission. If you got a manual, you don't have to worry about this situation. I think this situation is a little bit overhyped on the Toyota forums. There's so many different types of cars that have the transmission cooler in the radiator, and if it was that big of an issue, you think you'd hear about it more often. So anyways, I'm going to replace the radiator just as preventative maintenance. And since I'm in there and I'm going to have the coolant drain, I'm going to replace the thermostat because I don't know if the previous owner replaced it when they did the timing belt. And then I'm going to add the aftermarket cooler. It's a B&M 70264 because I want to drop my transmission temperatures when I'm going up steep climbs or in an area where I'm not going to get a lot of airflow through the radiator. Now, some people take an aftermarket cooler like this. This is a B&M 70264, and what they do is they bypass the radiator cooler completely because they're fearful that they're going to get the dreaded pink milkshake, is what they call it, when the coolant mixes with the transmission fluid. But the problem with doing that type of setup is under extreme conditions like towing in the mountains, or you're driving up a steep dirt road like four-wheeling, you're not getting a lot of airflow over these fins, your temperature is going to spike with just this type of system. The only way you're going to get an external system or a bypass system bypassing the radiator cooler to cool effectively in extreme conditions is you're going to have to maybe add a bigger cooler than this, have a fan on it blowing extra air through the fins so you cool it off. Because I did do a post on the Toyota forum asking for people with bypass systems to share temperatures that they saw under extreme conditions, and a couple people shared like when they were towing a heavy load behind their rig in the mountains, they got up to like 290 degrees. And then somebody said when they were four-wheeling up a steep trail with not a lot of airflow blowing by this, they also got up into the high 200s, which is not good. You're burning your transmission fluid and you're lowering its life. So anyways, you could do a bypass system, but you'd have to do more than just adding this cooler if you drive in extreme conditions. If you're just driving to and from work and not doing anything extreme like towing or four-wheeling up a steep trail, you could probably get away with bypassing your radiator cooler and going with just an external cooler. But if you do extreme driving like I do, where I'm going up into the mountains, pulling a motorcycle trailer with a bunch of gear in the back, I figured I want to go with the radiator cooler and run the external cooler in series. And then there's one other issue, is if you drive to cold climates, like going to the snow. I live in California, so I have real mild temperatures all year round, but if I go to Tahoe and I'm in sub-freezing temperatures, the radiator cooler also works to warm the transmission fluid to the proper operating temperature. I think the operating range for transmission fluid is somewhere in between 150 and 180, because it could actually be too cool, and thus the fluid is not going to lubricate your transmission as effectively when it's colder than that optimum range temperature. So if you're in a very cold climate and you bypassed your system with an external cooler, now you're not getting the benefit of the radiator cooler heating up your transmission fluid to get it up to an operating temperature quicker. So that's the reason why I'm choosing to go with the in-series setup, run the transmission fluid through the radiator cooler first, and then I'm going to run it through the external cooler and then back to the transmission. And I'm going to add a filter. So I heard that these magnifying filters, this is the one I bought, I'm going to put this in the line before it returns to the transmission. Here's some of the parts that I bought for this. Right here you have the first one is the part number for the thermostat. The second one in line is the part number for the radiator. There are different radiators you can buy, but I decided to buy the actual stock radiator from Toyota, and I bought all this stuff from Camelback Toyota. I like using them. They usually have the parts I need in stock and they ship quickly. And then I'm replacing my lower radiator hose because I've already replaced the top one, so I don't need that. The thermostat, which is right here, didn't come with an O-ring, so I had to go to my local Toyota dealership and buy this O-ring. So this part number right here is for this rubber O-ring that goes around the outside of the thermostat, and I'll show how that goes on later. And then this is the part number for the magnifying, it's a 3/8 inch magnifying inline transmission filter. That's the one I bought on Amazon, or actually I bought it straight from Magnifying's website. And then another thing I bought is this is 8 feet of 3/8 inch transmission line. I bought this at O'Reilly's. You can get it probably at any auto parts store, but I read on some Toyota write-ups on this job that they use 3/8 inch line and it works pretty good. And then I bought some hose clamps, some extra hose clamps. And the kit from B&M is, like I said, it's a 70264. It comes with all this stuff to mount it in different ways. And I'll show you how I'm going to mount it like other people have done in the past. Right through the air conditioning condenser and through the radiator. And it's going to use these heavy-duty black zip ties. And I'll show that later. I'm going to show you how I have the truck set up for this job. I have the rear jacked up and resting on 6-ton jack stands on the axle. And then I have the front up on these heavy-duty plastic ramps. I've used these for years. I know some people are sketched out by these, but they're built really solidly, and I've never seen a crack on these at all, and I inspect them on a regular basis. And as a backup, I put my floor jack under the cross member that goes underneath the transmission as a backup in case something weird happens and somehow this heavy-duty plastic ramp fails. I have a backup right there. I'm going to be spending all my time underneath the front, so I'm not really worried about the rear jack stands failing, which I think would be like winning the lottery if they failed, or getting struck by lightning. So anyways, this is my setup. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the skid plates so I can get access to drain the coolant. Okay, the first thing, like I said, I'm going to do, I'm going to take off the skid plates. So there's a bolt here, a bolt here, a bolt here, and a bolt right here. And then you could pull, there's a little tab right here, you can pull this one out. And then for the front skid pan, there's one up in here. There's another one identical over there. And then there's 3 right here. 1, 2, and 3. And these are 12 millimeter bolts. You see how that pops out. See there's a little tab there that fits in right here. So you could just pull this rear skid pan out of the way without even disconnecting this first. And I'm going to do the same thing, take all the bolts out and take this skid pan off. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the coolant right here. This little twist petcock valve will drain the coolant for you. It'll drain all the coolant out of the radiator and some out of the engine, because you got your lower radiator hose right here running from the engine. So you'll get some out of the engine as well. I've done this once before and I drained out close to 2 gallons of coolant. So I'm going to get a used jug of an antifreeze jug and drain it into the jug. That's the way I do it. And please don't discard the coolant in a illegal way. Take it to a hazardous disposal drop-off. Every city and every state has legal ways to get rid of the used coolant. So don't drop it down the storm drain or pour it in the dirt where some animal's going to lick it up and die from it. So dispose of it the correct way. Okay, here I go with draining the coolant. You can see it's flowing now. And you don't need to see this, you got the idea. So I'm going to drain all the coolant that's left over in the radiator into used. My vehicle was changed over to Prestone a while back before I bought it. It's no longer using the Toyota red coolant, and so I will be keeping with the Prestone, and I'm not going to try to convert back to the Toyota red coolant. Okay, while the coolant's draining, I'm going to show you something. On the side of your automatic transmission, this is an A340 series. There's 2 different ones, one for two-wheel drive and one for 4-wheel drive, but they're both the same in regards to the lines that run to them, or run from them and to them. So I looked it up on a Toyota forum. Somebody wrote it up that the rear line, so I'm on the passenger side of the transmission. The back of the vehicle is back this way towards my feet. The rear line here is the return line that returns the fluid that has gone through the radiator cooler and then back to the back this way. So this is the coolant returning from the radiator. This other one right here, the top line, or the more forward line, that is the one that sends the fluid to the radiator to be cooled and then to return back on this bottom line or rear line. So we're going to keep the top line where that comes out towards the radiator. We're going to keep that attached to, we're going to reattach it to the new radiator. But before the fluid returns back on this line, we're going to add the external cooler that's going to cool the transmission fluid a little bit more and then come back to the transmission. I hope that makes sense. So this is the return line. The upper one right here, that is the send line, sends the hot fluid to be cooled. This is a picture I downloaded from that thread off of Toyota forum that I was telling you about. So the guy was able to diagram for people, which was nice, that this back line that I was pointing to earlier is the return line, and the upper line is and the more forward line towards the front of the truck is the send line. And also I used another reference that I'll show you a little bit later. Here's the other reference I was telling you about. So this is something I downloaded online. So you can see it says under Toyota, the A340 series, which is the transmission on our trucks. And it says the rear line is this is a chart for the cooler return line chart. So it shows it is the rear line, which corresponds with what that guy put on the Toyota forum, that the rear line is the return line. Information that I'm using for this repair modification is I'm using my 2000 Toyota factory service manual. I'm in the cooling section, and it explains the steps to remove the radiator. So I haven't removed the radiator grill yet. I wanted to get the coolant draining first because that takes a little bit. So it says remove the radiator grill. Now there's 7 clips that hold the grill on the front. We'll show that. You disconnect the upper radiator hose. You disconnect the radiator reservoir hose, and then you disconnect the lower radiator hose. You remove the fan shroud, and then you disconnect the automatic transmission cooler hoses from the bottom of the radiator, and then you remove the 4 bolts and you can pull the radiator out. So I will next work on removing the radiator grill. Okay, it did say in the factory service manual there's 7 clips that hold this front grill right here onto the front of the vehicle. So there's number 1 here. It's kind of hard doing this by myself. Number 2 here. Number 3 here. Number 4 there. There's one, there's one, I'm pointing my screwdriver at it. There's one there. This is on the passenger side. There's one right in the center below the hood latch, right there. And then there's another one right there. You could kind of see it. It's hard with the lighting doing it by myself here, but see that little clip right here? My finger's on it. Let me get the screwdriver. Right there. They're all like that. It looks like you just pull them down and push in. So that's the style of clip. You just got to get access to all those little clips and push them through to get the grill off. So here's another look at the clips. You can see you just get a screwdriver in and you push this down, this little clip, to where it will go through a slot. So you got the 1, 2 right here, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Some people report that they break these things. It wasn't that hard. I just got a little flathead screwdriver in there, like a medium size like this. Got it in there, pushed it down to where it would drop down in the slot so you could pull it out. Not hard. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is remove the upper radiator hose. I just got these bent nose, needle nose pliers. Compress it, pull it away. And do the same with the other side on the engine side. And now I can pull this thing off. This one I just put on not too long ago, so you might experience a little bit harder to get yours off. But this thing doesn't have anything left in it. I think I'll just leave it right there. So that was easy. Next thing the directions say is to remove this radiator reservoir hose. So I'm going to take that off next. Be easier if I had somebody else here. Keep on saying that. Move that. That slips off easy. I'm also going to drain the coolant out of this reservoir, so you have to take this brace off that holds the battery in securely, and then this reservoir just slides in onto a metal mount, and I'll show you how to get that out next. The bolts for this bracket are 12 millimeter. Swing that out of the way. I'm going to just disconnect this thing all the way. The hose. Set this aside. We'll set it up here too. And then this thing pulls out. You know, maybe I should keep this thing in so it doesn't splash all over me. Well. Okay, this might fight you. It's not the easiest thing to break free, but you can see how it slides in this mount. See the plastic right there? the plastic has a slot right here, and that plastic or that metal mount slides in and captures the reservoir, and you just push it down. So I got my left hand underneath here while pulling on the top, and I finally was able to get it out. So this way you can drain the old coolant out of the reservoir too. You could see a better look at that mount that the plastic reservoir slides onto. Okay, I drained it. I'll slide it back in. That's it. Done deal. I'm going to hook the battery bracket back and put the reservoir tube back in there. And the next step is to remove the lower radiator hose. Get the clamp out of the way. This has the potential to be a little messy, but let's see if I can break this free. I'll get this clamp a little bit further from my hand. That's sliding off. And like I said, I made a little bit of a mess on myself here. So I'll expect that. Okay, I'm going to go for the upper clamp. Okay. I got it off the neck. And the lower radiator hose is out. The next thing the directions say is remove the fan shroud. So there's a clip right here. I already pulled it loose on this driver's side. And on the passenger side, you can see the clip is right here. Pull this thing out. And this is just the bottom part of the shroud. Okay, it looks like there's 4 bolts that hold the shroud on. There's one here, another one down there, and the same thing on the other side. There's one there and one down below, you can see. So they're 10 millimeter. I got all the bolts out, the 4 bolts that hold the shroud in. The lower one on the passenger side, the one down here, was the hardest to get to, but I have this ratchet. I was finally able to get on there so I wouldn't have to like do short turns on a ratchet. This Milwaukee works pretty good. What I did with the shroud is I just pushed it away from the radiator so I can pull it out. The next thing I have to do is remove the 2 transmission coolant lines from the bottom of the radiator, and I'm going to lose a little bit of transmission fluid in the process. So I'm disconnecting the send line first. Just pulling the clamp off. Let's see how tough this is going to be. It turned a little bit, so maybe not that bad. Let's see. That's slipping right off. And of course my light falls on me. And you can see I'm losing a little fluid here. So I'll just let that drain for a little bit. I'm probably going to get another pan so I can drain the other one. Okay, I'm going to get the next line off. This is again the return line, and this is on the passenger side of the, I'm sorry, correction, this is on the driver's side of the radiator. Okay, these tools work wonders. I think I bought these originally to take spark plug tube boots off, but these work great to get hoses off. Broke it free. Put the pan underneath here. And there we go. So the return line is now off and draining. And I am now ready to remove the 4 bolts that hold the radiator to the frame. The reason why they tell you to remove the grill is so you can get access to these bolts. So if you look on the other side, you can see where the studs come out. And so you follow the other side. So one is here, another is right there, number 3 is there, and number 4 is down. If you can see that, my finger's on it right there. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to see it with this head mounted system right there. 4 bolts holding it in. So it is a 12 millimeter. I'm going to use my Makita. I'm not going to take it all the way out. I'm going to leave some threads available so I can then just take it out with my hand, so it's not just going to drop down onto the frame. So I'm going to break all these free, leave the top 2 barely on, so then I could just hold the radiator with my hand while unscrewing it with the other one, and then be ready to pull it out. You know what? It looks like it's got a hook here, so maybe I don't have to worry about that. Looks like it hooks in there, so it holds it in place while you put the bolts in. Yep. So I don't think I have to worry about that. Well, that's one of the lower bolts right there. And I dropped it. Right there. And the other one is on the other side of this. And I dropped that one too. Okay, so all of them are free, and it looks like I just lift it to clear these tabs right here, and I can pull the radiator right on out. Okay, here we go, lifting it up, pulling it out. And that's the old radiator coming out. Bring it over here. And I got the new radiator in here. The only disturbing thing is, maybe I shouldn't be disturbed because everything's made in Taiwan, but it says this is a Toyota factory replacement radiator, and it says made in Taiwan. Oh well. Hopefully they built it well. Before I get around to putting the new radiator in, I wanted to blow out this air conditioning condenser because I plan on mounting my external cooler right here, and I'm relying on the good airflow coming through the condenser, then through the fins of the radiator, pulled by the fan, and that's going to, when I mount it, it's going to be pretty much almost flush with some foam pads in between the condenser and the cooler, and I want to clear out any of this excess debris, bugs and stuff, so I'll get maximum airflow. So before I put the new radiator in, I'm going to do a little bit of blowing air. So here's a look down into the engine now. I have the radiator out. I was able to pull the shroud out now that the radiator was out of the way. And before I put the new radiator in, I'm going to work on getting that return line off the metal transmission line, which I think is going to be a lot harder than getting it off the radiator connection because it's tighter. Okay, I'm going to try to get this return transmission light off the metal line. So first I'm going to get the clamp loose. Okay, I ran out of battery. I had to charge this for a little bit. So I got the clamp off the metal. I used these tools again here to kind of grip it and work it a little bit, and then I just twisted and I was able to break it free. So I didn't have to use any blade or utility blade or X-Acto blade or whatever to cut it to get it off. Just a little bit of elbow grease and I was able to break it free. This 3/8 inch transmission line, I used PVC pipe cutters. Makes a nice clean cut. So found another use for my PVC pipe cutters. If you have some of these, you don't have to use a razor blade or a utility knife. You could use this to cut your hose very cleanly. I've got the hose on, the 3/8 hose onto the return line. What I did is I took a Q-tip like so. I lubricated the inside of the tube with some automatic transmission fluid. I also used the same Q-tip to lubricate the male end of the metal line, so it will give it some extra slip when pushing it on, because the barbs, or the diameter of the transmission line, is a little bit bigger than this. So these lines have a little bit bigger inner diameter than the 3/8 hose I bought from O'Reilly. So you need a little bit of extra help to slip it on the line, and lubricating with some automatic transmission fluid is the ticket. And I've got the hose clamp on there securely, and I decided to do this right now before putting the new radiator in first, because I just have more room to get in there. Remember, if you took this fan shroud out to get a better look at the lines underneath the engine, then remember to put the shroud in first before you drop the radiator in. Okay, the radiator is going in. My gloves are getting caught. Get off there, okay. I'm looking to capture those hook spots. Okay, so now you can see it dropped into that spot right there, that hook, and that hook is in there. Now I can get the bolt started. So I'm just going to start these bolts by hand. They line up perfectly, by the way, so it looks like it's a proper fit. And I'm going to get the other two down there started. And this one over here. This one's going to be the harder one to get to. Maybe get it from underneath. Yeah. I'm going to have to figure this out and get the other one there. This is staring through the grill. Looks like I can get the bolt in by going underneath the bumper. Don't drop it, Tim. I dropped it. Looks like this might be the best way to get it. I got it started. That's the way. Go underneath, reach underneath the bumper and get your hand in there. Seems to be the best way to do it. Now that I'm ready to install the radiator, here's the steps in the factory service manual. So it says install the radiator with the 4 bolts. It says it's 8.7 foot-pounds. I don't have a foot-pound torque wrench that goes that low, so I did looked up a conversion table. 8.7 foot-pounds is 104 inch-pounds. So that's what I'm going to torque them with my inch-pound torque wrench. And then it says you insert the tabs of the radiator support through the radiator service holes, connect the oil cooler hoses, which is the transmission cooler hoses, then you install the fan shroud, then you connect the lower radiator hose, connect the radiator reservoir hose, connect the upper radiator hose, install the grill, fill it with coolant, blah blah blah. Okay, so those are the steps. And I'm also, before I put the grill on, I'm going to add that external B&M cooler, which is part of the reason why I did this thing. I'm ready to torque these. Again, it's just 104 foot-pounds. Not a whole lot of force. Or, correction, 104 inch-pounds. Inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. And you don't need to see me do this because I'm just wasting your valuable time here. So I'm going to torque these down to 104 inch-pounds. Instead of putting the shroud on now, I'm going to wait till I get the cooler set up the way I want it. So I'm going to use the zip tie setup where it's going to push through the condenser first, and then they're going to push through the radiator, and then there's going to be a tab on the back side. So I'm going to do that first before I put the shroud back on. Here's the B&M cooler. It has these adhesive pads right here. So they actually have a little hole already drilled out so you could put the zip tie through. So I've got them on there, and this side that you're looking at faces the air conditioning cooler. Okay, so I got the cooler installed. This is the passenger side. So what you do is, it's okay if you bend these fins, you actually break them a little bit. It's the fluid actually flows through these horizontal ones. These ones in the middle are cooling fins, so you end up damaging them a little bit or breaking them out, but that's not going to make anything leak. So you push the long zip ties through, and so the orientation of the fins this way, you're spreading them out, but then when you come around to the radiator, the fins are in a different orientation, and they slide through a little better without really damaging the fins. So you could do it either way, pushing the zip ties through from the radiator out towards the front, but it was easier for me to do it this way. And then I'm going to slide the ends on. They ratchet on, cinch it up, cut off the excess, and it will be ready to put the hoses on. So again, these things are pushed through. The pads are in between the air conditioning cooler, and then I'm going to route the lines through this spot right here where these air conditioning lines go through. That's where my path is going to be. Okay, the fan shroud is back in and the bottom piece is snapped in. Sorry I didn't show you that, but I'm sure you can figure it out. Just the reverse of what you did. Now, hooking up the overflow hose right here. I'll just take a little pliers and put that on. Work that on there. There we go. And now I'm going to work on running the lines for the transmission cooler. Okay, so I have the cooler installed to show you the flow of the fluid, the way it flows from the transmission to the stock cooler inside the radiator. This right here is the send line to the radiator cooler. So the hot fluid leaves the transmission there, and this is the upper line of the two lines, the two metal lines. So if you trace it forward, it's this one right here, and then it connects to this rubber hose right here. So the send line goes to this side, the passenger side of the radiator, and then it travels through the cooler towards the driver's side, exits here, and then before adding the cooler, this would go back to the metal line, back to the transmission. But now I have it going through a magnifying filter to get some extra filtration, because the filter inside the pan here is just like a mesh filter. It doesn't filter out fine particulates. So I added the magnifying filter. This line right here goes up, and then I'll show you where it comes out. It comes out right here. It goes into the top part of the cooler right here, and then it gets cooled on the fins, goes down, exits the bottom here, and then returns down. And you could see that I did some abrasion protection against anywhere it could rub right here through the area where it passes through, where the air conditioning lines go through. I split some of the 5/16 inch coolant hose that the kit came with, and I just put it on all sides of the metal so it would be abrasion protection. So everywhere, you can see here, I put abrasion protection here, and then underneath the truck I put abrasion protection here. I mean, I really kind of overdid it, but I wanted a lot of abrasion protection in case it would rub and cause a leak. So you can see I put it here against the frame. And then, so it returns. This is the return line from the bottom of that cooler, and it goes to the bottom hose, this one right here, and then it returns to the return line right here, and it goes back into the transmission, and then the cycle repeats. So that's how I did it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the thermostat that I didn't get around to doing just yet. This took me quite a long time, longer than I thought it would, but because I was trying to figure out the best way to route the lines, and I finally figured out a way that would work for me. But this seems to be a good route, and other people have used the same route. So here's a schematic of the page in the factory service manual that shows what you need to take apart to get at the thermostat. So this is the lower radiator hose, goes to this elbow, and there's 3 12mm nuts that hold this elbow on. This gasket goes over the wide part of the thermostat, and then it goes right in there. And I don't know if I have the thermostat right here. So you have this O-ring goes right around the rim here, and the torque spec for those bolts is 14mm. So I'm going to remove these 3 nuts and get that elbow off so I can get the old thermostat out. So one of the bolts, or one of the nuts, is right here at the top. There's a bracket right here that's just holding the bracket on. Well, it's also holding the neck on too, but so there's one there. There's one over here. I don't know if you can see it with this camera angle. Let me see if I can do a little better job here. There, my fingers on it. It's really hard to do by myself here. The camera's looking at it right there. That nut right there. And then there's one below that I'm going to get from below. Okay, that one's loose. And the other one is right there. My index finger's pointing at it. Hopefully you can see that right there. Okay, they're all busted loose. I'm going to back them off and then pull the neck off. Okay, I just pulled the neck off. It came off really easily. You could see it coming out right there. Here's the neck. And then let's just look underneath and see what the orientation of the thermostat goes in. So supposedly the jiggle valve, sounds kind of a funny name, the jiggle valve is supposed to be towards the 6 o'clock position, downward. So on this one, how do you get the sucker out? It's welded in there. Okay, this might be a little hard. I'm gonna have to stop the video, mess with this a little bit. Okay, this is the old thermostat. What I did is I grabbed the hold of it with a pair of channel locks. Where are those channel locks? I just grabbed the hold of it right like this and pulled out, and it finally broke free. I guess the rubber gasket was a little stuck on there. Now the factory service manual says that the jiggle valve, which is this little doodad right here, should be at the 6 o'clock position, and mine was at like the 3 o'clock. So let's see what it says in the book. It says, place a new gasket on the thermostat, install the thermostat with the jiggle valve downward, install the water inlet with the 3 bolts and torque them to 14 foot-pounds. So mine was more at the 3 o'clock rather than the 6 o'clock. So I'm going to install it at the 6 o'clock this time. And this is a new gasket. You just form it around. It has like a little channel in here, and you just put it on like so. That's ready to go in. Just remember, you put your jiggle valve down facing the ground, 6 o'clock position. Okay, now that I have the thermostat replaced, the lower radiator hose is back on, everything else is back on, so I'm ready to top off the coolant. So I'm using Prestone 50/50 solution. It's already pre-diluted for you. So this is what the previous owners were using, this style of antifreeze, not the red coolant. So just top off your radiator, and then when you start the engine and the engine gets to operating temperature and the thermostat opens up, then it will lower the coolant. You could add some more in. It'll start flowing the coolant through the engine and or through the radiator, and it'll drop a little bit, and you could add some to your reservoir too. So that's what I'm going to do now. So what I'm doing now, I'm just checking for leaks. So I topped off the coolant, I put some in the reservoir, I topped off my automatic transmission level to the cold level, and then I'm just looking around seeing if I see anything leaking. Get underneath the truck, same thing. Look at all your connections, make sure nothing's leaking. Radiator hose, looking up at the thermostat, everything looks good. Next thing I'm going to do is get it off the stands and take it for a test drive, heat up the transmission fluid, and then check to see it's in the hot range. Do yourself a favor, and before you get ready to test drive it, just double check the top of your engine. It's common, at least it is for me, that I leave some tools laying around, so I don't want a tool falling down and jamming into the fan or the belts or something. So I'm just taking a look, making sure I got all the tools off the top of the engine. And then I'm not going to put the skid plates on just yet, and I'm not going to put the front grille on because I want to take it for a test drive and then just do one last double check to make sure there's no leaks in any of the connections. Okay, the job is complete. I took it for a test drive. I heated up the transmission fluid to a warm temperature and checked the fluid, and it was low. Mainly because quite a bit drained out. I added a quart right away, knowing that I drained at least a quart out. But I think the additional length of lines that run to the cooler take up extra fluid, and the filter I added and the cooler itself. So I think I added more than 2 quarts of transmission fluid to bring it to the hot level. And the grill I snapped back on. You just got to line up the clips and then push in, and it went in pretty darn easy. So I know this video wasn't perfect because I was doing it by myself and the lighting wasn't always perfect and the view from the camera wasn't perfect, but I think you get a good idea of how to add an external cooler to your Toyota 4Runner, and you'll learn how to replace the radiator and the thermostat at the same time. So thank you for watching Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman, and I will be back with more videos for you. Bye-bye.